Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all well. I call our assembly to order, and we'll start with a prayer and pledge, and I ask Councilor Ferreira to lead us today.
Thank you, Governor. I just want to take a moment of silence for all those affected by this crazy disease, and hopefully we can continue to vaccinate people at a rapid rate and get over this. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
United States of America,
and to the republic,
to the republic for
one
which it
nation,
stands,
under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
under God,
with liberty
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Ferreira. For a motion to record advice.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Lieutenant Governor.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I recognize Councilor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices.
So moved, Governor. Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I recognize Councilor Jubinville for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Sharon F. Lalli to the position of Associate Justice of the Falmouth District Court.
So moved.
Second. Discussion, Lieutenant Governor?
There's a motion and a second. Councilor Devaney.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I would be remiss if I didn't comment on Attorney Sharon Lalli. First of all, I have never seen in 21 years someone who is so dedicated in her personal life into helping people, besides being so qualified for this position. She first applied and was rejected. And so then later on, she applied again and she withdrew because she wanted to adopt children from foreign countries. She's a single woman and she left her legal profession for 11 years. And she eventually worked 21 outstanding years as a lawyer. But first of all, about her private life, and I want that to be in the public record. That's why I'm bringing it up to you, Lieutenant Governor. I mean, she was a single woman and she had a dream someday, hopefully, to become a judge. But her desire was to be a mother, and that was her priority. In that 11 years, she waited for years to adopt 2 children, one from Russia, one from Paraguay. Her son in Russia was in a bed at 9 months old, swaddled, could not move his fingers or any part of his body, couldn't turn over. And I bring this up because something has to be done. This is more than child abuse. This is torture, preventing this child from normal development, physical and mental. Children walk at 9 months old. She devoted years for intervention when she finally brought her son to America. And her daughter that she adopted at 3 months had eye problems. So when she returned to practice, she has had the most horrific cases. And just to mention one, there were parents that had 8 children, sexually abused, even got HIV, and they were kept in chicken coops. Attorney Lalli has compassion and empathy that I look for. She never finished a case and let it go. She always followed up on the victims. Were they doing all right? Were they getting the services they needed? She told me it took a very long time for those 8 children that were in chicken coops to trust her. Of course, she got parent removal, And she followed up and made sure that they were placed in loving foster homes. I particularly like her because she's had many criminal cases. She's had both civil and criminal. I felt it was important to get the record, on the record for Attorney Lalli, because she's just what the district court needs. She's outstanding, she's qualified, and again, the compassion and empathy that I look for. And you know what, Lieutenant Governor? She could easily be in the Superior Court with all her experience and her qualifications. So I want that on the record because I can't separate someone's personal life from their public life. And she's just, what can you say, just a good person. So I'll be very honored to be voting for her today.
Governor, can I just say a couple of words? Governor, can I say a couple of words?
Councilor Ferreira.
Thank you. I just want to say you can touch all the bases on this one. It's a grand slam out into Lansdowne Street. He's an extraordinary person and he's going to make a terrific judge. So I just personally want to thank the administration for putting her up, and I know she's going to be a wonderful judge. Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, may I
Hey,
say
Councilor.
a comment, please?
Yes, Councilor Duganville.
Thank you. I reiterate what the two councilors said before me, and I think it's a great appointment. She's a wonderful woman. She'll make a wonderful judge. Thank you for nominating.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
Counselor Duff,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor DiPaolo,
Yes.
Counselor Hurley,
Yes.
Counselor Ferrer,
Yes.
Counselor Jubenville,
Yes.
Counselor Deviani,
Yes.
Counselor Iannella,
Yes.
Governor.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I know you have a hearing underway, and appreciate your hard work and ongoing work. Thank you. Be well, be healthy, be safe. That concludes our agenda for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, this hearing was set for 11, and Lieutenant Governor called it her assembly today. So I'm glad that we could work it out, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this hearing for James M. Murphy. And I will start with just asking, and I know I'm always ignored, but I never stop trying. Would everyone in this room, including counselors, to put away their cell phones, turn them off, in respect to this nominee and to the importance of this hearing that we are about to begin? I will first call on the witnesses, and I believe that we have our first witness, who I'm very honored to introduce, Judge Matthew Machera. And I appreciate you being on Zoom, and for the public to know, Judge Machera wanted to come in person, but he's got a broken foot and seeing the doctor today. So thank you. Thank you so much for appearing here. And it's always my pleasure. One of my proudest votes. And thank you so much for all your work with the drug courts. It's exceptional. Thank you. So you're on.
Yep. I wish I had an exciting story, but I was taking the trash out and I took a fall. It is so wonderful to see you all. Again, I'm sorry that I couldn't appear in person. I have a boot from my kneecap on down, but luckily no surgery, so that was good news today. It's my honor to be here today on behalf of my good friend.
You're very soft. Get closer to the microphone, Judge.
Oh. Can you guys hear me now?
Very good.
Okay. It's an honor to be here with my good friend, Jim Murphy. I've known Jim for the better part of 25 years when I was the chief of the Safe Neighborhood Initiative for the Suffolk County DA's office. And I recruited Jim from the Dorchester District Court to join our team. Our team was a very unique team. It was a team that was started by the late Paul McLaughlin, where we spent more time outside of court than inside of court, trying to reach at-risk youth and working with community leaders and clergy members to offer wraparound services to prevent the youth from entering into the criminal justice system. So we never worked a 40-hour week. I think we worked a 60-hour week, and it took a unique individual to do that. And Jim hit the ground running right away and became an extremely valuable and trusted member of the Grove Hall community, and was part of the success that we had where Suffolk County went almost 2 years without a juvenile homicide. And Jim's work was so wonderful that I actually appointed him as my deputy chief, and was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. So when you look at a candidate to be a judge in the district court, the first question you ask is he qualified? Councilor Ferreira stole my line about hitting all the bases, but if Jim was a Red Sox baseball player, he'd be Andrew Benintendi, because you could literally plug him in to any position. Criminal defense attorney, criminal prosecutor, a wide range of a variety of civil cases, so much so that when I went into private practice, Jim was one of my go-to guys with regard to civil cases. He's done landlord tenant. There's nothing in the district court that's going to be a surprise. And coupled with that, his experience as an outstanding assistant clerk magistrate in the Woburn District Court only leads him to the fact that he will be an outstanding judge. A more important question is why? Why does somebody want to be a judge? And I am firmly convinced that the reason Jim Murphy wants to be a judge is the same reason that he's been a practicing lawyer for all these years, because he truly wants to help people. One of the great things about the district court is we can actually be a community court, a court that doesn't just hurt people. We want to be a place where people can come for help. You know, the drug court, the recovery courts that we do, Jim has been helping people his entire career. And the way that he conducted himself as an assistant clerk magistrate, anybody that's been in front of him knows that he treats everybody with dignity and respect. So he wants to be a judge for the right reasons, because you can truly change people's lives. I had the honor of presiding over a graduation last week where the mayor of Boston spoke about his struggles and his successes when he graduates 7. Jim understands that better than anybody I know. He will be an outstanding judge that will truly change people's lives. And then the question is what's your temperament? Let me just say this about Jim. He's one of the generally most honorable, decent people I've ever known. If I ever came into work and Jim Murphy was in a bad mood, I would turn around and go home, because something would definitely be wrong with the world that day. I have never seen Jim in a bad mood. He will treat everybody with dignity and respect, as he's done his entire career, especially as an assistant clerk magistrate. You know, you travel through this life and you appreciate the people that you know, and the people that you get to call colleagues, and the people you get to call friends. And that's especially true in this time of COVID, where you really have to value these relationships. Jim is one of the most honorably decent people it's ever been my pleasure to work with. But it's even more of an honor to call him a friend. I really applaud the governor and lieutenant governor. This is an outstanding pick. This is not someone that will just be an outstanding judge. He will be a mentor to other judges. He's already been a mentor to me, and I've been on the bench for 8 years. So without hesitation, I highly recommend Jim Murphy, who will be an outstanding district court judge, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Judge. Any councils have any questions? Council
It's good to see
Kennedy.
you, Judge. You're doing a good job over there in Chelsea.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's it? Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much, and I hope you mend fast.
Thank you very much. It's great to see everybody. I can't wait to see you guys.
But I do want to say that you know what you're doing is you're a pioneer, because, I was wondering how effective the drug courts were, and looked into it, and I came to your graduation, and I sat in the back and tears came to my eyes. I was so impressed with all of those people, men and women of all ages that came through, the drug court and have graduated and turned their life around. And I'm especially proud of Mayor Walsh to talk about his background. I think that's inspirational to all the people going through your drug court. So
I just like to say for the record, I'm the least important person in that drug court. My recovery coaches have been something beyond superheroes. When we had to transfer over from in-person to telemedicine, we had almost 100% compliance. And the work that Katie O'Leary and Kate Gillespie do with the North Suffolk Mental Health and the other recovery coaches who are helping people regain their lives, that's what a hero is to me. It's not an athlete. It's not a movie star. It's the people who reclaim their lives and then give back to others. So it's just been an honor for me to work with them, and they do all the hard work.
Well, they're also proud of you for what you do. Tell me, how has the pandemic affected, the drug court to have people come through?
One of the things we did was we quickly moved to telehealth, which sort of had an added benefit in that people who normally would have childcare or transportation issues were able to join a lot easier. I mean, they still miss the one-on-one contact, but we added extra meetings so that there would be an extra layer of support, and they were able to access telemedicine almost at will. So nobody knew what telemedicine was before. I'm on a national committee where we started talking about it. So I think one of the silver linings in the pandemic has been the fact that we've been able to reach more people. And like I said, we had a higher success rate and a lower dropout rate than we did prior to the pandemic, which was very, very surprising to me because, of course, we were all very worried about how this pandemic would affect the drug court. But again, I owe that all to my recovery coaches.
Well, I'm so pleased that you're there to be the mentor for these people. And I had thought, through the pandemic, it would be more difficult because, this whole Zoom thing and everything. I'm glad that it's still going well. And, I think of judges 20, 30 years ago, they never had the responsibility that you have. I mean, they talked about drugs, the war on drugs, but nothing was ever really done all of these decades. And so finally, we do have drug courts, and thank you for all you do.
And again,
You
we
saved
couldn't
a lot. You saved a lot of lives.
We couldn't do it without the support of people like Jim Murphy, who have been just outstanding assistant clerk magistrates, and the extra work that they've had to do during this pandemic has just been
Well, your testimony means a lot to us, Judge. Stay well and heal fast.
I hope I see you all soon. Stay safe, everyone. Nice to see everybody.
Take care.
Stay safe.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce our next witness, and that is Judge Maida, someone that we all respect, who has such a wonderful reputation in the Commonwealth. Now, where is she? You're here. Good, good.
Morning.
Oh, I'm so glad you came in person.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm afraid I'd be prejudiced if I say, you and Judge Machera, two of my favorites. So it's so
I'll
good.
take it.
It's so good to see you, and thank you for coming in person. That means a lot. So, so tell us, what what you know about our nominee and how you worked with him.
I'm happy to. And first, good morning, Councilor Devaney. Good morning to all the councilors. It is such an honor to come before you again, this time on behalf of Jim Murphy. I was fortunate enough.
Excuse me, you can take off your mask because you're about 20 feet from us.
All right. I was fortunate to be confirmed by this body 3 years ago this month. And Councilor Devaney was my host as well. So it's my pleasure to be here again in front of all of you. As a district court judge for the past 3 years, I've had the opportunity to sit frequently in the Woburn District Court when Jim Murphy was clerking the session. And he was always courteous and respectful to me. But I'm not here today to tell you how Jim Murphy treats a judge. Because when I first met him, I was not a judge. I was a bar advocate. I was helping people who needed help navigating the criminal justice system in the Woburn District Court. And as you may know, it's a tough public defender job. It's really no frills. And that's where the real story is. And if I could, I'd like to frame my next words with some words from Brian Stevenson. The true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. With this in mind, I will tell you how Jim Murphy treated the people that I represented when I was a bar advocate. If they spoke too loudly because they had mental health issues, he was understanding. If they were under the influence because of addiction issues, he was kind. If they were late to court because they had childcare issues, he had empathy. And Jim was just as kind to me as a lawyer. If I was juggling my cases, trying to build rapport with a client that I had just met in lockup, he didn't rush me. If I needed to make phone calls to get my client bail money, he always gave me a second call. If I needed police reports to argue against an unexpected motion to revoke bail, he would let me work off of his. Jim Murphy understands that litigants, and sometimes their lawyers, are just trying to get through the day. He upholds the court process, and at the same time, he treats every single person with dignity and respect. That is the real story on Jim Murphy. Today, he sits in the seat that I sat in 3 years ago. And if he is fortunate enough to be confirmed by this body, then I have no doubt, based on what I know about Jim Murphy, that he will be among the best of my judicial colleagues. Thank you so much for your time.
Councilor Jubenville.
Thank you. Judge, thank you for coming in. That was a wonderful presentation. I really appreciated listening to that.
Thank you very much.
And,
And I know you know how it is in the district court.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And how you enjoying the judgeship?
I am so fortunate to have been confirmed so that I can make an impact on the public every day, and I truly feel that's what I do. I feel that it's a positive impact. I'm happy to be there.
Seeing you and the way you work, counselors like knowing that we voted the right way for you.
Thank you very much.
I may.
Councilor Kennedy.
You presided over your first jury trial, I think, out in Framingham.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And you texted me the name of the defendant. You remember what that was?
Oh, I do.
And what was the name of the defendant?
Strangely enough, the name was Terry Kennedy.
Yeah. Was he found guilty or not guilty? And were you kind to him?
In jail.
He's probably been in jail a long time if he's anything like the other Terry Kennedy.
I'm going to keep twisting your arm to make you go to Superior Court. I want you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other councilors have any questions? Well, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
I've been following you, and I'll tell you, I know in Concord, they sing your praises, and they're so happy that, that you have come. Of course, you're everywhere, though. You don't stay at one court. But where are you? Tell us the courts that you travel to besides Concord.
Well, most often, I would say I'm in Air District Court and Woburn District Court, where I have the pleasure of working with Jim Murphy. And I also go to Framingham. I've been in Lawrence, Lowell, really almost every single court in Middlesex County.
Wow. I've been here long enough to know you were assigned to the Concord Court, and you go there the least time, I think.
It is true. It's a strange
No,
phenomenon.
I don't
right.
know why, but that's part of the course up here. That's what I found out. So, so you, how many years have you known? Is it 3 years that you've known him, or more, or what?
I started as a bar advocate in Woburn in 2016, I believe. So I've known Jim Murphy since then. We had met prior to that as well, but that's really when I started working with him and saw him on almost a daily basis.
Right, right. So, what would you say is the greatest attribute that he brings to the bench?
Well, first I'd have to echo everything that Judge Machera said. He's just a wonderful person in every way and just so even keel. Nothing rattles Jim Murphy. But when I think of him, I think he has the attributes of a teacher. And the reason I say that is that particularly during the COVID timeframe, there have been a lot of pro se litigants who have more questions than usual. And Jim has a way of taking information that's pretty complicated and breaking it down into its smallest parts so that the person can understand, the person who's not themselves that day or is,
Right.
At wit's end can understand and absorb. And it goes beyond even that person. It goes to the audience that may be sitting in court. So that is one of his best attributes among many.
Can you tell us one case that you had appearing before him that, that you'll always remember, about his, how he acted on that case?
Just search my memory for it. When I was a bar advocate, you mean?
Yeah, bar advocate.
I'd have to think back to think about one case. I might end up giving you a little more of a generalized.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
I recall I was often in Woburn District Court. I would take duty days the day after a holiday because I thought it would be a fun and busy and interesting day. I'd pick up a lot of clients. I'd see people who really needed help as well because it generally was people who had been held over a long weekend. So there were a lot of factors into that. So I would work on a July 5th or a day after New Year's or something like that. And that's also often the time when Jim would be working, an extra busy day in first session. What I remember is that he would run the session so well, so efficiently. When you have a lot of custodies, it's important to sort of keep the cases moving and run the session well, but also make sure that each person feels dignified and respected and not so overwhelmed because they've been held in custody. So I remember as a front line of the court and a face of the court on a day like that, which was often the day that I would pick to be on duty, it was just such a pleasure to work with him. And it was drug cases, it was OUIs, it was serious domestics. He would handle each case with such dignity and grace so that the person didn't feel judged per se, if that makes sense. And if there were temperatures that were rising, he would always find a way to diffuse the situation.
Well, it's quite a tribute for the nominee for you to come and speak on his behalf, believe me. I think this is the first time you've been back to talk with someone.
It has been.
Yeah.
And I take it very seriously. I would really only make remarks for someone that I would like to be a colleague.
I know, that's why it means so much. It really does. So, well, I can't thank you. It's so good to see you. And I'm thinking of that little girl. What is she, 12 now?
She's 12, Maina, yes.
For people that don't know, when I was presiding, her daughter was right in front of me, and she kept smiling. And no matter how I looked, I kept looking and smiling at her. It was like a magnet. I couldn't stop looking at her. And afterwards, she sent me a card with a heart on it. It was just beautiful. And that was very memorable. And I'm just so proud of what you've done. And the people that I know in the court that have said wonderful things about you, because in the past they hadn't been so happy, and now they are. So thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming in person.
Thank you. Thank you for having
so
me.
much. No, thank you.
Thank you all.
Our next witness is Trey Lewis.
Morning, everybody.
Thank you, Trey, for coming in person. We really appreciate it.
Oh, man, I wouldn't.
Okay.
This is very good.
So please tell us what you know about our nominee.
Jim, him and I used to work together in the first session all the time. And,
Pull that
I'm
close.
sorry.
Pull it close to you, yeah.
Whatever team Jim goes on, he's a good man. And he's for the people. He's a community guy. When Jim first walked into Woburn District Court, we started talking about sports and how both our daughters play lacrosse. And we gelled from there, and we started working together and became good friends, going out to lunch together and stuff like that. But let's just talk work-wise. Jim and I used to run the main session fast. He works. He's a hard worker. He wants to get things done. Judge Maida says, he's a great person for the community. But it's just funny that Jim was, Trey, get these attorneys out of here where they need to go. And we used to make lists up. And we probably cleared the courtroom out probably the fastest in the state. I mean, we keep it moving. We kept it moving. But personally, I wouldn't do this for everybody. I've been on this job for 29 years.
Tell the public your position. I didn't.
I'm a court officer for 29 years. I've been in Bristol County, worked with Judge Rufo, one of my good friends. I could see him being like Judge Rufo, a very personable guy. Judge Driscoll, Suffolk County, Judge Markey down in Bristol County years ago. And I could see Jim being like one of those guys, a community guy. And when I mean community guy, I mean for the people in the courthouse, but also the people in the community. Like with this COVID on, Jim would probably say, Trey, come on, let's go support the restaurants. Let's go support the community. But he really is a good person, and his demeanor is like Your Honor said, is just real smooth and cool, calm, collected. But he's a good man. I'm gonna put the period on this. He's a good man for this job.
Thank you so much. Your testimony means a lot. Counselors, Counselor Juvenile.
Condolences to you, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You know what strikes me about you, times I've been in Woburn Court, I don't think you sit down at all. You are constantly moving, going out to the lobby, asking people what they're doing, what they need. You're just a constant moving person. That's why you get out of there so quick in that court.
Yeah.
Because you help people to get in, sit down, wait your turn, help them to the clerk's office. Oh, great job. You really do. I mean that.
Thank you. And I love my job.
Yeah. You can tell.
I love it.
Tell by watching you.
Yeah.
So keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Kennedy.
But you and I have obviously known each other for decades, and you're a very good man and a very dedicated servant. I just want to say, we know your father passed away the other. I think it really speaks volumes that he passed away, that you're in here testifying for. Really says a lot about how strong you are.
Thank you very
And
much.
I offer my condolences.
Thank you. Jim, he means a lot to me. He's a good friend of mine.
Any other counselors? I don't know who's on Zoom. I know we have Counselor DiPaolo, Counselor Kennedy, and Counselor Juville. Is there anyone in Zoom? Okay.
I see Counselor Hurley's there.
Counselor Hurley, are you there? I'm sorry, I missed her. I think that she had an appointment. So if she does come back, I will call on her. Thank you for
Marilyn, I'm
coming.
here. Marilyn,
Are you here?
I'm
Oh,
here.
wonderful. Okay, Mary, I'm sorry I missed you. So you're on.
Okay. There was obviously no opposition to nominee Murphy's appointment. We had a very good talk prior to today's meeting. And being in the courtroom every day, you have been, so to speak, in the bullpen for quite some time, and you're ready to come out swinging. I was very impressed with your resume. I was very impressed with your philosophy and approach, and I think you're going to make a great judge. So I'm happy to say that I'll be voting for you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Hurley.
Thank you, Counselor.
Getting back to you, I was going to mention and extend my condolences. I was going to wait until everyone made their comments, and I am so sorry. And it took a lot for you to come here today, and we are so appreciative. Thank you. 29 years, so you've seen a lot of people. And I've been here 21 years, and if I'm not mistaken, this is your first time
Here?
that you've spoken for someone.
No,
Re-
Hazel.
Oh, my goodness. How many years ago was that?
Hazel, 3 years?
Oh,
About
my
3
God.
years?
Oh, my God, Judge Mate. Well, how could I forget? I was
Yeah.
presiding.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it took you 26 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, you came for good people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I think the best thing that anyone could ever say is he's a good person.
Very good.
I think that's the best you could say. So I'm glad you're keeping the restaurants going.
Yeah.
I have put on over 20 years. I'm keeping them going
Oh, yeah.
as best I can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But so when you have seen other people in his position in your 29 years, what would you say? What stands out about this nominee than the other clerk magistrates, assistant clerk magistrates?
Frustration. A lot of clerks get frustrated and just crumble. Jim never did that. Speed wise, Jim could probably one of the fastest I've seen, clerk wise. The way he talks to people, like Judge said, he's just a oiled machine when it comes to being a clerk, and he's just a very personable guy, and that's what clerks need to be. And there's a lot of rude clerks out there. You'll never see that from Jim, never. But yeah, we just worked together. We had fun. We had fun together, Jim and I, when we worked together. And Judge Frank, us three together
He's
in the
great.
courtroom,
Great guy.
probably would be the best courtroom in the state, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth. But I just, you guys, you're getting a good one. You're getting a good person and a good judge.
Well, for me, for you to come after 26 years, for Judge Maida, and 29 years, for Judge Murphy, I'm saying, they had to make an impression on you for you to come. And so that means a lot to me. And you know what else means a lot to me? That, you're not just sitting there that you saw him a couple of times. You have seen him every time that he has been in the courthouse because you've been there. So that's the greatest testimony that anyone can have. Because as I've said, we have people that come and sit there, attorneys, and I'll say, oh, how many times have you, been in court with him or seen him? Once. That doesn't do it for me. So I can't tell you how important your testimony is to me. And I just, I'm just so sorry for your loss, and I'll keep her in my prayers.
Thank you. We were teammates, so
Oh,
we were teammates.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, everybody. And this is a beautiful place.
But you wouldn't want to live here. So now, Jim, it's your turn. And I think I don't know whether I will do it now because I was very pleased. Two people that I have such respect for. Well, you get it all. You know, you hit it out of the park having Judge Maida and, you know, and Judge Machir. I mean, you know, it's really, I'm sorry, Judge Maida, I'm sorry, Judge Machira and Judge Maida and Trey Lewis. These are people that have seen you and, you know, that's great. So I'm going to read the letters first, okay? And one of them is Bill Concannon. And Bill says, Dear Council Devaney, I am writing to you today to recommend Mr. Murphy to receive your approval to be appointed to the bench in my hometown of Newton, Massachusetts. I have known Jim for many years, both as an attorney and as a family man. When practicing law, he was always the guy to go to get the right answer. When his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, he was the rock that stepped up to the plate to take care of the family. I believe his intelligence and judicial temperament will make him an asset to the judiciary. Please feel free to contact me with any questions, and thank you for your time. I've never heard from Bill in all the years I've been here, and he's a friend. I was a good friend of his brother Tom, God rest his soul. So my other letter is to someone that I presided over, and that was Judge David Frank, another good guy.
I'll say.
So he said, "It is my pleasure to write a letter in support of James Murphy's nomination for a judgeship in the district court. I have served as an associate justice in the district court since 2014, and I have no doubt that if Mr. Murphy is fortunate enough to be confirmed by the Governor's Council, he would be a fantastic addition to the bench. Mr. Murphy and I have known each other since 2002, when we were colleagues in the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. During that time, Mr. Murphy and I were both assistant district attorneys in the Superior Court. Mr. Murphy was a highly respected member of the office and is someone I often sought out for advice and feedback. He had a well-earned reputation among the bar as a talented trial lawyer and highly ethical practitioner. When Mr. Murphy entered the private sector in 2003, I took over the prosecution of many of his pending cases. In that capacity, I had an opportunity to observe the careful, thorough, and thoughtful manner in which he put together his cases. Over the past few years, I have primarily sat in Worcester District Court, where Mr. Murphy is an assistant clerk magistrate. As a result, I interact with him on a nearly daily basis and have observed him at work in almost all facets of the court. On the criminal side, his background as both a prosecutor and defense lawyer have clearly allowed him to do his job well. I have seen Mr. Murphy manage busy first sessions, mental health proceedings, and countless criminal jury trials in a highly professional manner. In the civil area, Mr. Murphy has vast knowledge in summary process matters, civil jury trials, and other civil proceedings. He is a tremendously helpful resource and highly skilled in these matters. Mr. Murphy is patient, knowledgeable, hardworking, and efficient. He always arrives on time, fully prepared, and treats all of the litigants, lawyers, and court personnel with dignity and respect. He has a calm demeanor and even temperament that would benefit him greatly if he were to be nominated for a judgeship. Mr. Murphy clearly understands how the court system works, and I firmly believe that his skill sets and abilities would make him a tremendous addition to the bench. It was a true honor to be nominated for a district judgeship in 2014, and I would only submit a letter like this on behalf of a candidate that I was fully confident would perform the job well. It is for that reason that I support, without reservation, Mr. Murphy's judicial nomination. Please do not hesitate to call me directly at 617-840-3718 if you have any questions or need additional information. Sincerely, Honorable David E. Frank, Associate Justice, one of my proudest votes, and I was happy to preside over Judge Frank. So having said that, I would ask if you would introduce your family and anyone else that you brought.
I certainly will. Thank you very much. Thank you, counselors. First, we have my son Luke, my wife Catherine, my daughter Caroline, and my daughter Sarah.
Welcome. Okay, you're on.
Thank you. Yep. Good morning, counselors. My name's Jim Murphy, and I appear before you as a nominee today for a district court judgeship in the Newton District Court. You've heard on my behalf from the Honorable Matthew Mishera, the Honorable Tejal Mehta, and the excellent Trey Lewis, and I thank them all for their kind words. Thank you also to the Honorable David E. Frank and the many others who supported and guided me through this process. You met my family just a moment ago, and I want to thank them for being with me on this journey and coming to support me today. I would like to express my gratitude to Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for putting their faith in me with this nomination. I would also like to thank Bob Ross, Lauren Green Petrino, and Emily Gauthier for their efforts in this most important process and for their confidence in my nomination. I will take this opportunity to tell you a little about my family and bring into focus some of the experiences behind my resume. My father was born and raised in Brighton and was a clothing guy his whole career. A gifted salesman, he started as a teenager in the men's department at Jordan Marsh, also known as Jordan Marsh. When my sisters and I were growing up, he was an executive for a men's clothing manufacturer. This took him on the road often. Planes and trains took him away from his family for days at a time, but he never complained. He did what he had to do to build a life for his family. My mother grew up in Belmont and was a teacher. Teaching's a highly respected profession in my family. Both of my sisters are teachers. I also married a teacher. My mother taught in the Boston Public Schools and left the profession to raise a family full-time. She went back to teaching kindergarten in Belmont when my sisters and I were in college and retired after 30 years in the Belmont Public Schools. Both of my parents are watching right now, and I would like to express my gratitude to them for all they have done for me and my sisters. Their hard work and dedication to family is the reason that I am able to sit here today. My first job out of law school was a clerkship with the Massachusetts Superior Court. That year I worked with talented judges and saw many fine attorneys practicing their craft. Chomping at the bit to do trial work myself, the next year I was hired by the Suffolk County DA's office and began 2 great years in the Dorchester District Court. While in District Court, as Judge Mishera said, I became involved with the office's Safe Neighborhood Initiative for Grove Hall. It was a model of community-based prosecution that valued input greatly from the communities we served and that had respect, cooperation, and mutual admiration as its cornerstones. For the next 2 years, I was a Superior Court ADA within the Safe Neighborhood Unit and eventually became the unit's Assistant Chief. Those years in the DA's office instilled in me the importance of public safety and advocating for the vulnerable when they often are not able to advocate for themselves. It also taught me the value of compassion and mercy and the value of sometimes just listening. Whether it be listening to a defense attorney tell me about his or her client, or hearing from members of the community that I served. After the DA's office, I chose to work in a small firm because to me, the law has always been about people. When I went into private practice, my practical skills were those of a prosecutor. This changed quickly. Besides becoming a criminal defense attorney, I became a civil litigator and a real estate attorney and a landlord-tenant attorney. You get the point. I had learned many, many new things and had great teachers at the firm, but often when I needed to know something, I did it the old-fashioned way. I taught myself. I dealt with many serious criminal and civil cases in my years in private practice, some of which are described in my application before you, but I also learned what it meant to be a lawyer in the community. Whether it was because I was the new guy in the firm or I had a way with people or both, I was soon the point person for intakes in the firm. Small firms and solo firms are just a little bit different. You get walk-ins and phone calls that may not even be legal questions and are often not cases that you end up working on. For instance, when a person from the neighborhood called the office for legal advice about the squirrels jumping from the trees onto their roof, that call made it to my extension. I never minded. I enjoyed the interactions with potential clients. To me, helping people is all part of being an attorney in the community. Not always glamorous, but never, ever dull. Almost 5 years ago, I was afforded the opportunity to become an assistant clerk magistrate in the Woburn District Court and got to work with some of the most talented, dedicated, and professional individuals I have ever worked with. I have worked with them through a perilous pandemic to continue to provide access to justice for the people we serve. We adapted and overcame many obstacles, aided by acts of bold and selfless leadership in the trial court. And I believe we are becoming a better trial court as a result. When I returned to the trial court as an assistant clerk magistrate, I thought I was prepared for anything. As a trial attorney for 17 years, both as an ADA and in private practice, I had been around the block a few times and thought I had seen it all. However, I was not prepared for the day-to-day devastation of the opioid crisis. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing people struggling with addiction day in and day out, from middle-aged professionals to 18-year-old kids who had already been sectioned 5 times and overdosed 10. I've recognized for a long time that you cannot give up on people battling addiction. Most people don't defeat a substance abuse disorder on the first try. Some don't succeed on the 7th, 17th, or even the 77th try. But one thing is clear to me. You cannot give up on people because they are either going to overcome this illness or succumb to it. I also believe that people need to be treated with dignity and respect in their court system, whether they are the victim of a crime, a criminal defendant, a civil litigant, or are people applying for protective orders. Working in the district court has given me the opportunity to see talented judges, probation officers, attorneys, prosecutors, clerks, court officers, clinicians, and victim witness advocates striving every day to serve the community in a compassionate and oftentimes collaborative way. I learned a lot in my time with the trial court and will continue to listen and learn if confirmed to this judgeship. If confirmed by this council, I pledge to serve the position with integrity, humility, and compassion, to uphold public safety, and to honor the ideal of access to justice for all people, no matter their race, creed, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or economic situation. Thank you, councilors, for your kind attention today, for your consideration of me for this awesome responsibility, and thank you for the sacrifices that you make in your service to this Commonwealth.
Thank you. I omitted something before I called on you, and that was I asked if there's anyone here that is not on the witness list who would like to speak. Having said that, is there anyone in opposition? So now we get that aside.
Thank you.
Is there any councilors' questions? Councilor Jubenville.
I think you've done a heck of a job in Woburn District Court. You were always very kind to me and to other lawyers, but more importantly to me, you were kind and courteous to people that came to the counter in that court. You know, and I know that people come into court, if they're not familiar with it, they're afraid, they're scared. Someone in their life is probably in the dark. And when it's somebody behind the counter like you to calm them down and say that you'll be fine and where to go and how to handle it, that means a lot to people. I think us lawyers that are in court all the time, we don't sometimes realize what it's like when you're not familiar with a court. And you come into those buildings, especially if you're from another country. When you walk into court, you don't leave them. So you've always impressed me as being very kind and courteous and a good public servant to the people in the Commonwealth. I'm sure you're going to be that as a judge also. I was Looking, you worked for the Connie Bletzer.
I did. Who was in Newton?
Yeah.
As you know, for years, a lot of what I know about Newton comes from Judge Bletzer himself.
Yeah, I first met him when he was an attorney. I think it was in 1971 in the Brighton District Court. He used to do a lot of work out of Brighton. The
Yeah.
Brighton boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a great background. I really appreciate what you did for me and others in that court. You're a kind and compassionate man, which I think is probably two most important qualities of being a judge. So I look forward to voting for you next week. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Don't change.
No.
Don't change with a robe, okay?
Any other
Thank you.
councils have questions? Council Kennedy.
I don't have any questions. I've obviously been in the moving court 10,000 times when you've been on the bench running the sessions or running clerk's hearings. And I would just echo what other Councilor Jubilo said. Very compassionate to anybody who goes in there. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter their station in life, something Judge referred to in our court. Kind to everybody. You're a great public servant and an incredibly good lawyer. Bench. So I'll be voting for you next week.
Thank you, Counselor Kennedy.
You have a question, Councilor DePaul?
Thank you, Councilor Devaney. Good morning, Attorney Murphy. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. We had a good conversation, and I just want to ask you a little more detail on how you'd exercise your discretion and your philosophy as well. So you talked about the path to recovery and the difficulty that folks have on that path. You and I discussed, and you wrote extensively in your application about the challenges, especially around dual diagnosis, substance abuse disorder, and others. And in your statement, you talked about not giving up on people. So I'm wondering how that perspective, how you imagine it playing out when you are exercising your discretion on the bench.
As far as dual diagnosis programs, oftentimes, as you know, people are not only suffering from addiction, they're suffering from a mental health issue as well. And the ability to get them into dual diagnosis programs, either through the court or otherwise, can really get to the root of some of the problems. So those would be programs that I'd certainly be looking towards if I were to be a sentencing judge, or if we're talking about Section 35s. That's a situation where people can get both types of treatment, or at least treatment for their addiction and then some mental health treatment as well.
Thank you. And one of the issues that's pervading our justice system right now here in Massachusetts and everywhere, but we know that there's significant disparities in all sorts of areas of our criminal justice system along racial lines. And I'm wondering if you could share what your reaction is to that phenomenon, how you've perhaps observed or experienced it in your career, and more pointedly, I guess, your reaction to the specifics in the Harvard study that was released last year.
Yep, thank you. For a lot of practitioners, what the Harvard study, or the Gantt study, as some have called it, has done is put it into the macro. When we're in court every day, or we're in court with our client, you get the micro, and it's difficult to see the larger picture, from 2,000 feet up, so to speak. And that's what the Gantt report did. And I think the numbers are staggering as far as the disparities are concerned. And I believe that one of the biggest pieces was the fact that they attribute almost 70% of the disparities to the initial charge, as far as whether someone's charged with possession or possession with intent to distribute drugs, whether someone's charged with assault and battery or assault and battery, a dangerous weapon. That was eye-opening for me. And I think with the data that they had, they really were able to drill down and give some very, very interesting and helpful insights to the trial court.
And we had spoken a bit about the pipeline that a lot of folks take to end up in our district court, starting at the juvenile level and the backgrounds that some of those kids have. And I appreciated your perspective on that. And so I guess my last question is around what you just spoke of and those trends that we do see in the justice system in the Gantz/Harvard report. How do you suggest that an individual in the system can play a role in addressing these system-wide issues? Because obviously one person isn't going to unravel this, right?
Agreed, Counselor. And when you talk about systemic issues, you obviously talk about the entire system, but it does start with individual efforts. And I believe that the study itself has really drawn into focus these issues for a lot of people. It was an exhaustive report as far as data was concerned, as much data as they could get their hands on, that is. And I believe that it's everyone's job in the court system to look and see if they have implicit bias. There's now an actual jury instruction to every jury trial having to do with implicit bias, but I believe it's everyone's charge, so to speak, and the trial court has been working towards this, is to see if everyone does have implicit bias. It's part of what happens as a human being. And for people to be able to try to understand that biases exist and try to make sure that they're somehow not at work within their own decision-making or their own attitudes towards people. So it really is a bigger picture, but I think it starts with individuals being mindful of the things you just spoke about.
Yeah, I entirely agree. And I think that especially judges taking the bench now, to me at least, it's important that they do have these issues in mind as one of the important factors that's being discussed among the judiciary and not merely being reflected upon in their own practice. And from our conversation, I appreciated that you may share that perspective.
Thank you, Counselor.
So I have no further questions. I just want to say, though, that your perspective on mental health and substance abuse disorder, as well as some of the other macro issues affecting our justice system, sat very well with me. So congratulations on your nomination, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Counselor DePaulo.
Thank you, Counselor. Well, we talked about so many things. I thought we were going to have to do the dishes. They were sweeping the floor.
Right.
But anyway, I thank you for coming out to meet with me. It's very important. I made that commitment when I first was elected that I would meet with everyone from the parole board. I made that commitment that I would meet with everyone from the parole board to judge, because I'm not voting for someone just on these papers. I'm voting for the whole person. So I want to get to know you, and I really did. And I don't separate the public from the private, and you are so dedicated to your family. My only thing I said to you was, it wasn't fair. I had 4 pregnancies, there 4 children. Your wife had 4 pregnancies and 5 children.
Yeah, right.
But no, it was really a pleasure to meet you. And you know, we talked about, you know, so many things in your cases, and I've always said I wouldn't vote for anyone who doesn't have empathy and compassion. And, you know, you've got that, you know, stamped on your forehead. And I'm very, that's very important to me. And one of the cases that you talked about, I saw that. And that was the case about that older Asian man. You want to talk about that?
When I was a prosecutor.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a case where a gentleman who had actually just arrived in Grove Hall from Haiti.
3 days.
What's that? 3 days. You have a good memory, Counselor. He had been in Grove Hall for 3 days, and he was here on a green card, and he was here to work. And he had worked a couple days, and I know that he had in his wallet $400 and a green card. Green card was the most important thing in his wallet. He didn't care about the $400. So he was in Grove Hall. I was a Superior Court prosecutor, And really what we proved at trial is that he was set upon by these two people. And they slapped him around, laughed at him, and then one grabbed him from behind and the other held a pistol to his head. And they robbed him. They humiliated him and they robbed him. They took his wallet with his money and his green card. And the gentleman did not speak a word of English, but he was able to hail down a police officer on Blue Hill Avenue. And the officer was able to come back to the scene, and the wallet was in the bushes, but the perpetrators were still there. So they were arrested. Now you have to fast forward to the trial. That's the actual arrest. And I had a great team of people working with me. I had a victim witness advocate and an investigator assigned to me for that case, because it takes a lot of people to put these things together, not to mention the officers themselves. And there was a gap in our language, because he didn't speak English and I didn't speak Haitian Creole. I was so lucky to have a victim witness advocate who was of Haitian descent and was able to, I actually would write letters to the victim, and my victim witness advocate would take them home, have them translated into Haitian Creole, and then my investigator would deliver them to him. So I was able to keep up this communication, mostly how are you doing? Is anyone bothering you? Letting them know, really, you want to keep in contact with the victim because you want to let them know how things are going. Sure enough, day of trial, he shows up in his absolute Sunday best, and through a translator, tells the story about what happened that day. Very brave, very truthful, very dutiful to get up there and stand in a brand new country and say, those are the men that did that to me, and I'm not going to let it happen. And
What an introduction to this country.
what an introduction to this country. But I have to say that
Get justice.
right, and the fact that all he cared about, Counselor, was that green card, because we got him back the money, we got him back the wallet, but he wanted that green card. That was his ticket, so to speak, and that's what he was asking about. And we were able to get that back to him and get him some justice for the people who had done that to him. That stayed with me.
My only experience in Grove Hall, I don't know what now, but it was quite a dangerous area.
Yeah, it's got areas that are are dangerous. It's got areas that are revitalized and very, very, very good. But there are certain, the good people of Grove Hall want what everybody else wants. They want quality of life. But there are some bad apples in there, and part of
like
what
everywhere.
like everywhere, and part of what our job was as assistant district attorneys was to.
I have no experience at all in a court there or whatever. I only have a memory of years ago. My late husband was a firefighter, and he got they had a mutual aid call, and he was in that area. And the firefighters in Grove Hall all went to the fire. When they came back, TVs, everything was stolen while they went out on a fire. So that's my only memory of it. And I know there's a lot of good people, and I don't want to say there's not. But isn't that terrible? That's the only memory I have of that incident. I don't know what they could do in a case like that. They couldn't, lock up everything. They had to get out to a fire, So anyway, I'm glad to hear that it is better. That's great. No, but that showed me a compassion and empathy for that man. The other one was the strangest. That was the strangest case I've ever heard in 21 years about the woman who called the police because she was being threatened by this man, and he went outside and hit himself. Why don't you tell the story? I mean, it's too crazy.
I will. No, it is, but you've got the beginning of it. She was in an abusive relationship, and she had two young children, 12 and 8, at the home. And a gentleman who was her boyfriend happened to be drinking. She told him to leave the house. He wouldn't. And she said, if you don't leave the house, I'm going to call 911. You're being abusive to me and my family. Sure enough, as soon as the sirens sounded, he did go outside, but he didn't leave the premises. He actually went into the backyard and began hitting himself with rocks from the garden, so that when the police showed up, he had bruises and his face was bloodied, and he was the first one to the cruiser, and he said, she just assaulted me. And that night, she was taken into custody in front of her children for a felony, assault, battery, dangerous weapon. So I got the call that evening, and I was able to go into court with her the next day, and over a few different dates, was able to right this wrong. It did include talking to the police department, who were very good about reopening the case, looking at it anew. And in fact, it was the only time I had ever done it in my career. I gave the police the phone number for my client. I said, call her on the cell phone. She is absolutely in the right here, and she wants to talk to someone about this. And they reached out to her, and it ended up getting dismissed. It ended up turning the right way, but that was one of the stranger ones as far as the
Yeah,
facts.
that was strange. And the thing was that she was a teacher. She could have lost her job. How awful in front of her children. But all I can think of is I think they should have questioned her in better form than just to arrest her, because she's the one that made the call. But it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback,
Yes.
But that was, I think that's the strangest I've ever heard, that he would hit himself with rocks. That's unbelievable. Okay, I always like to know your journey here, how you got here. Okay, so you applied when?
I applied for this
Well,
particular.
you did before, right?
Yes, I applied in 2015.
But you didn't get an interview, right?
I did not.
No, okay.
And I applied for this particular position in November of 2018.
So was there 6 years in between that you applied? Was it?
Just about, 6 years from my first application to today.
Right.
But somewhere closer to 3.5 years between the two applications.
When you look back to the present day, what have you learned? Have you learned anything in that time that makes you a better judge?
I most definitely have. No, that's a good question. And that time is marked really almost exactly by the time that I've been in the clerk's office in Woburn. So I went back to the trial court, so to speak, and worked with a lot of amazing people. And you really get to know the trial court when you're in there every single day. Not only the people that work within the trial court, but the people that are coming in and out. And you just learn it's really nuts and bolts. You learn the practical side of the trial court, and I've loved it. And so those 5 years, so to speak, really were instrumental in my education, because I was able to do work as an assistant clerk magistrate and learn things that I would have never known if I had been a private practitioner.
I think in talking to you, it was learning about opioids and drugs that really was an eye-opener for you.
It was very much an eye-opener.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, we'd take you to the J&C hearing. Okay, all right. For the public, 21 lawyers are chosen by the governor to have the awesome responsibility to choose who they're going to interview and who they're going to recommend to the governor for a lifetime position. How many of those 21 special appointed lawyers were there to interview you?
A little while back, but I think my panel was either 11 or 12.
Okay. So I'm venting. It has nothing to do with you, but I like to always make it public. 21 are appointed to make that decision. We don't have that authority as governor's counselors. All we can do is vote on one person. We're not even allowed to know how many were interviewed. or how many applied. So let's say there's 10. So 11 people vote, never met the nominee, never talked with them, never saw him, never called them. To me, that's outrageous. And I'll tell you, years ago, there was a JNC chair, and he told those 21 appointed attorneys by that governor, if you don't appear at the hearing, you don't vote for the nominee. But not so now. In this administration, we're lucky you have 6, 8, 10, and that's how it goes. And I can't do anything about it. And I am very public about that it shouldn't be that way, because lots of times, I'll talk myself, I have found out things and they have not done their job. Maybe it's because they don't have enough of them to take the job seriously. I don't know. But that's quite a responsibility to take on. And if you don't want to do it, then don't reduce it to half of them like it's being done now. So, that has nothing to do with you. You are well qualified, and I'm very glad that you got through and you got recommended. Now, what was the most rewarding case that you've had as a prosecutor, or even as a in your clerk magistrate position, assistant?
As far as the most rewarding, I think I have to go back to that case with the school teacher who was wrongly accused. It was really a situation where someone's life was turned upside down, and law enforcement got it wrong. I mean, they do a great job, but in this particular situation, they got it wrong. So what I had to do is use my skills to make it right. And oftentimes that has to do with doing things that are creative. For instance, reopening or attempting to reopen the investigation, talking to the prosecutor many different times about how this is not the way it actually happened, and having patience, because something like that doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's one of the things that my client in that situation didn't understand, is that it wasn't going to be the next day. It was going to take some time. People needed to be talked to, and people needed to be persuaded. So I'd say that was, having this person get her life back was definitely fulfilling.
Well, your experience is very rounded. I mean, even to the probate court, and that particular one I was interested in because I wanted to know how many how many men versus women have you represented in custody of children?
I've done very little of that. As a trial attorney in my firm, I did help with some of those cases. I would say that of the few number of cases I did, mostly represented men, but I can think of now 2 or 3 women that I represented as well in custody issues. It wasn't a big part of my practice, but it was a part of.
But like I said, you're well-rounded. You've gone to
It was a part
Superior
of my
Court,
firm's
you've been to
practice.
probate.
Yeah.
But the thing that caught my eye on that one was you represented the father.
Yes.
And he got sole custody.
He did. And
I have seen in my experience here that fathers don't always get a break. This adage that, women are the best mothers or whatever, but it's not true in all cases. And just as disclosure, I am a member of Women in Leadership for joint custody. I really believe if mother and father are good people, then they should have some arrangement, joint custody in any way that they can, that child will have a mother and a father. And I was pleased to see that you represented this man and he got sole physical custody. Was that very hard for you to do, to
It-
get that verdict?
It ended up taking some preparation. I asked for his family members to come. I remember that his two sisters came and that his mother came as well and just talked about really what a good dad he was. And that's what it took. It took preparation. It was more than, just going in and asking him questions. I had people come up and explain to the judge what a good person he was. So I think that really carried the day there.
Well, it was shortly after, I had, been a governor's council, maybe a year or so. And there was a judge, she became a judge. And then I read in the Globe what she did, and I was heartsick. Okay, she, first of all, where that isn't, your prime, court to go to. All right, let me ask you first before I tell you about that. What would be the criteria that you would allow a mother to take toddler children and move across the country to Oregon?
I have no idea.
You have no criteria for that?
I know I don't have any idea.
Okay, all
That's
right.
well out of my bailiwick.
Okay, well, the criteria I would be if I was a judge, do you have a job? Do you have family? What is your reason for going there? Because the father is going to be divorced from his children, living here in Boston, and she's going to Oregon. So that's who am I to say? I'm not a judge, but that's what I would have done. And she didn't meet all that criteria, okay? So now I read about what this judge did. And I dug in, I investigated to see what the background was after I read about it. And it was a very loving father. And they were divorced, and he lived just a few streets away. And he used to see the children almost every day. Christmas Eve, he'd stay overnight to see them get up for, Santa. He was devoted. And anyway, she decided that, it was, how can I say it? She had a purpose to get the children away from him. There's no question. And she moved to Oregon, no job, no family, not knowing anyone. And that to me was heartbreaking. And she gave him visitation, and I hope that they've thrown that out. There's no such thing as visiting your mother or father. I hate that word. But anyway, they gave him visitation here in Boston, 6 o'clock to 7 on the internet, that he could talk with his children. You can't hug a computer. And so he literally was divorced from his children. So I know that's not going to come up for you, but you did have that case, and I said, good for you,
Yeah, thank you.
But, that was so wrong, so wrong. And I thought, I don't have a crystal ball as a governor's counselor. And you know what? Sometimes a robe changes a person, and I have no way of knowing that. I have no way of knowing a Salem judge is going to let an illegal alien on probation for 2 years when he is a noted drug dealer. And I heard the tape, and he said, if you were a citizen, I'd put you in jail, but you're providing for your family. I have 2 friends who lost boys from overdose of heroin. I don't like him providing for his family on the death of my friends. So, having said that, that's the thing that we don't know, the unknown. So I thought, wow, you went to the probate court, and that was the only case that you had in your JNC about the probate court, and he got sole custody. And I think you must have proven that he was a good father, and she wasn't the best mother. I mean, that's what it goes, So anyway, yeah, that was something. Now, this has nothing to do with you, but just to know your philosophy. Juvenile court. You think that age should be increased?
I don't do a lot of work in the juvenile court.
No, but if they change the to 21, they'll be coming to you. I'm just asking, do you think the juvenile, they've already increased, I think they're done with it now, but there are some people who still want to increase the age.
I wouldn't, I really don't feel that I have the ability, not having worked in the juvenile court, to speak on that, Counselor. I wish I did, but my experience has all been in the adult court and
Well,
in the
I
civil
understand.
court.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, but I have an opinion. And I don't think they should increase it. The juvenile court is overworked now. I don't think they could take any more. And just yesterday, a 14-year-old shot a woman he didn't even know, killed her. And I'm reading more about juveniles who are killing people. And I'm concerned about the sentencing. And I just think that it shouldn't be increased. So I don't have to be a lawyer and have to be a judge. I have an opinion. Maybe it's not worth anything, but that's how I feel about it. I really think, they're doing a good job in the juvenile court. Don't increase that age, Do that. Anyway, yeah, I got a lot of opinions.
No, that's right.
But anyway, that one hitting himself with the rock and everything, I think that was the most unbelievable thing that I could ever hear. But, the 209As, you've dealt with those.
Lots of them.
And again, I ask, how do you determine if that's truthful or if it's just vindictiveness?
Mhm. No, I think you have to assess the credibility of both witnesses. That's why you give the opportunity of both sides to come up. I think you need to oftentimes look them in the eye, see their body language, listen to how they speak, and also listen to the other side as well. I mean, those are full hearings when both parties are there. So within that time, you have to determine the credibility and decide who you think is telling the truth, because sometimes the stories are.
Are they doing Zoom for that?
For some of them, they are. For some of them, they're doing Zoom. For some of them in the Woburn Court, people are coming in as well and doing in person.
But the criteria that you would use is pretty hard on Zoom. Body language, eye contact, isn't it, on Zoom?
It can be at times.
Yeah. No, that it concerns me, and I'm concerned with the pandemic. And I just feel that, maybe the numbers are down for domestic violence and child abuse, but we know it's not going down. We just don't know what's going on in the home. And that really bothers me. I have asked Lieutenant Governor and Governor if they would just give a telephone number for people to call. And I haven't heard it. I hope that they will soon. So anyway, when you put all your experiences together, I know that they all, have equal importance, but is it the private practice? Is it acting clerk magistrate that has given you the most experience to be the best judge?
I would have to say my most recent appointment as an assistant clerk magistrate
In the court?
in Woburn Court really sort of put it all together for me. Having been an assistant district attorney and then a criminal defense attorney, civil litigator for 13 years, when you get back to the court system and you reacquaint yourself, in my situation, with the system, that was most helpful to me as far as what happens day to day in the court.
Yeah. Now, you have had, I'll tell you, I say it again, you're so rounded. You have dealt in real estate too, as a lawyer, right? And real estate issues, landlord and all of that. So that would probably come up too, right, in court? That you're gonna
We do, yes, we do see it. I mean, we see landlord tenant in the district court. A lot of the landlord tenant cases have gone to the housing court now, especially in Middlesex County. But real estate really permeates a lot of what we do. As far as the civil litigation that we see in the Woburn District Court, we tend to see purchase and sale agreement deposits that are being, fought over. A big part of what I did was work with people in the trades when I was in private practice, and there's a lot of construction litigation in the district court. A homeowner doesn't like the work that a contractor did, or the homeowner hasn't paid a contractor, so you have these sort of contract disputes that we've seen quite a bit. So I think my background in real estate will be helpful.
So some of the things overlap that won't go to housing court, they'll go to district court.
Yes, they're able to go to either, yes.
Yeah. The thing I'm concerned about now, and I get a lot of calls about it, we had people testify on it, and a lot of judges are ignorant on it, and people aren't getting justice on it, is the illegal home forfeitures, that they're unknown entities that are taking the homes, and the judge doesn't have a name, and yet he's allowing it. I'm not an expert on it, but I've heard some terrible things. I mean, we had someone come here as a witness, and he was blind, and gave up his job to take care of his mother, who had cancer, and she eventually died, and they took the house away from him. And I'm just saying, I don't know where the compassion versus law goes on this, but I've heard too many. And I think the judges have to be educated on it. This is a new thing. 30 years ago, we didn't hear about these, these things happening. Maybe they did, but very rarely. But now it seems to be the norm. So, so those things wouldn't be coming before you.
No, Counselor.
Yeah. So, so the most rewarding was the man that came 3 days to this country. That, and
Very
I'm sure
rewarding.
that, what you instilled in him about this country changed.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. And so the most disappointing, what was that? Most disappointing case you had?
I would have to say, when I was prosecuting once again, I had a case which was a possession with intent case. So I was the prosecutor, and then there was a criminal defendant who was charged with possession with intent to distribute heroin. And it became my case. And I actually didn't know a lot about heroin back then. I didn't know about amounts. I didn't know about how much an addict would use. So to me, divining possession with intent was difficult, if not impossible. His defense attorney was very good, had been a defense attorney for quite a while, and this happened to have been 15 bags. I remember it. It happened to be 15 small bags of heroin. And he, after a while, we talked at a pretrial hearing, and he said to me, this person can go through that in a day and a half. This is personal use. He's at this point about using about 10 bags a day. So it became a different case for me, and ended up becoming a probation case with drug treatment. So the gentleman went on probation with drug treatment, and he actually, I ran into him at Downtown Crossing, and he recognized me, and I recognized him when he approached me, and he said to me, I just want to thank you for giving me that opportunity. I'm clean, I'm sober, I'm seeing my baby girl again, and I've started a job and the like. And to me, that was nice. That made my day. The disappointing part of the story is about 4 or 5 months later, I looked back, and he had reoffended and ended up going to jail. So that was disappointing.
Yep.
It is the nature of addiction sometimes to relapse and then come back. But I just remember looking at that and just wishing that he had made it, and finding out he hadn't.
Well, for me, here 21 years, I see injustice. When I see a Salem district court judge say to a big drug dealer, you're providing for your family, you got 2 years probation. And then I recall, I don't know, must be about 10 years ago, we, you know, we should be getting more, you know, people who are looking for probation, parole rather. And anyway, we had someone come before us. I got the wrong word. But anyway, he was about 57, this man. And he had, when he was 17, he was on his way to school. And an older friend, 21 years old, stopped him and said, "Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you sell these bags of marijuana?" This 17-year-old was naive, gullible, good kid, never got in trouble, never realized what he was doing. And he took the bags, brought them into school. You know the school law. And he sold one. And when he tried to sell the second one, that student went to the office and told on him. And they found the rest of the bags in his locker. In those days, when it first started, it was 5 years. Then it changed to 2. Went away till he was 22. And I think if the judge had discretion, and if it was a judge with compassion, maybe he could have given him community service, something, I don't know. But I think of this man, his youth, dates, proms, football, maybe getting a scholarship, nope. And I think of 20 who was deported so many times, big drug dealer the police were trying to get, give him 2 years probation. I see it all. I see the injustice of it. Sorry, can you hear me? I see that's the injustice of it all. You know, someone selling it for years and killing people probably, and getting 2 years probation. And this young kid made a big mistake. This man that came before us, he came out of prison and he got a job as a janitor in a private school. Private school closed. Now where's he go? Even without the burden of being accused of that, where does he go? And he's had cancer, he's had a leg removed, everything he went through. And he's a community leader, he coaches and everybody loves him, he has a family. And I think, where is the justice in this at all? You know, so I don't have to be a lawyer to understand justice. And I've seen both sides of it, you know. So, but I think, you know, you're going to be a judge dealing with things that 30 years ago judges never had to deal with. I mean, drugs was in Roxbury or Lawrence, and now it's in Dover and in Lexington, and now people are paying attention. But we still haven't that war on drugs was a joke, sad joke, because that's been, what, the 70s? So that's what it is. So, but I think that you bring all the experience together in, you know, to be a great judge. And I could go on some of the other things that we talked about, some of your other cases, but that one with the man hitting his head with the rocks, I mean, that was, you know, and to me, I'm sorry, I have an opinion, and I think they really failed in not talking to her before they arrested her, accused her in front of her children. And you know what? Sometimes even when you're innocent, people think you're guilty, and she has to live that. And she could have lost her job. And I think she was a single mother too.
He was.
Yeah, I remember.
do.
But look, I'm not going to keep you any longer, but you had the best witnesses you could have had for me. And I'll be very proud next Wednesday to make the motion for your appointment. And I wish you all good luck. And now you can take your family and go out, and congratulations all, and have a dinner. I appreciate all your time that we met, and it was really my pleasure. But if I had never taken that time, I could never know the whole person, and that's what I'm going to be voting on Wednesday.
Thank you, Counselor Devaney.
Thank you.
And thank you, counselors. Thank you for your time.
Well, we only have Counselor DePaula here.